All right, so we're back. It's been a few weeks since we've done an episode together. Today we are talking about something that I was talking to Dr. J, that a lot of people are like, how do I protect myself? How do I protect my energy? What, you guys have been talking about spirits. What are the bad ones and the good ones? So if you look back in the classes, we do have the different types of ghosts. But today we're going to focus a little bit more on like dark or malicious, or maybe the less benevolent spirits, and as well as just dark energy, and how to protect ourselves from that.
Okay. Okay, so the first thing I need to say is that different situations call for different things. And whatever we say here will be generic. It won't necessarily deal with somebody's particular situation, because each situation is unique. And we've talked about that. That's kind of what shamanism is about on some level, is, okay, you got this specific situation and we can't just follow a rule, but given that, the first thing I want to say is that being negative or positive, it isn't always what it's about. So for example, the stone lion spirits, I think I mentioned those in another one, and I'll just tell a little bit about it here in this context. So it was out in New Mexico on my mother's property, 274 acres, something like that, of badlands in New Mexico. And there was ruins of ancient pueblos there from maybe 1600, something like that. They were wiped out by the Spanish. And there was a place there with a sandstone pillar that just happened to look like a mountain lion. And so my husband and I and my sister and her boyfriend, we wanted to kind of go and check out the ruins and so on. And we hiked out, took us most of a day to hike out there over arroyos and all of this stuff, no humans for miles and miles. And we found ourselves by this sandstone pillar, and we thought, well, this would be a great place to camp for the night, and then the next morning we'd explore. And so we put a big fire underneath this pillar. And then my husband and my sister's boyfriend went off to get more wood. It was dark. And then I went into the tent to get jackets because it started to get cold. My sister was sitting at the fire. All of a sudden there were these spirits. They looked like they had like holes for eyes, black holes and big teeth. And they appeared in the fire and they said to her, "What do you want?" And my sister was just absolutely freaked out and didn't know what to do. She was terrified. And then they went past the tent. One of them looked into the tent, came in and face to face with me. Totally scary. I held my hand over my hara. So that's your belly button and the right under, about an inch under your belly button. It's a power center. You need to protect yourself there. If you're worried about spirit possession or something, that tends to be where they go in. And that's your power center. And that it's important to protect yourself there. So I protected myself there, and then the spirit went out. And so when the men came back, we were terrified and we hid in the tent. We wanted to just go back to the car and leave. Because we were just camping on the property. There were no houses or anything like that. And but my husband and this guy, pointed out that it was night. We would never find our way back. So we had to be inside the tent, and we could feel the spirit outside. We were terrified. In the morning, we felt like it chased us. And it was like two of them, and they like chased us across the landscape. and we ran, you know, and we went as fast as we could to get back to the car. And then we packed our stuff and we went up into the mountains. They chased the car, and we were up into the mountains, and they were gone. We thought, these are really scary guys. They're predators. We're the prey. We don't know what they want from us, but it's something horrible. Well, then when we figured out what these spirits really were, it turns out it was not negative, it was positive. They were protecting us. We were in the wilderness. There were bobcats, there were mountain lions, there were wolves. It was like, we could hear them in the night. I think they were wolves. It might have been coyotes, but I think they were wolves. You know, I mean, this was true wilderness. They were protecting us. That was their job. They were hunting spirits. We had called them at their shrine, so they believed that we were part of their human community. And then we thought they were chasing us. They were herding us across this landscape where it's easy to get lost. We didn't get lost. We went a really straight way because they were chasing us. No, they were herding us back to the car, herding us over the mountains, keeping us safe. So we thought it was negative, but had we known what we were dealing with, it was positive. When my mother tried to visit them at their central shrine in the mountains, where the Native Americans have a shrine, she couldn't get close. And when she was across this big arroyo, big canyon, they were on the other side, and then they were flying at her, and they were blowing the wind at her so that the sand went up into her face and into her nose. They were killing her because she was an intruder, because she was a white anthropologist who wanted to write articles about the Native American religious practices, which the Native Americans keep secret. And so she was then the intruder. They were negative to her. So the idea is that, and you can look at Pueblo Spirits in the life of Felicitas D. Goodman. It's a graphic novel that I wrote in collaboration with her and, illustrated. You can get it on Amazon if you want to hear the whole story. But it's the idea that I want to get across here is that the spirits aren't negative or positive exactly. It's situational. It's got to do with what your relationship is with them and what kind of spirits they are. Had we known that they were hunting spirits, we would have known what their job was from their perspective. And then we would have understood what was happening, and we would have been, our fear. And that was the other idea that I wanted to get across. Our fear caused us to not think about, so why are these spirits here? And what is this about? And what kind of spirits might they be? I mean, we never thought to ask those questions. We never thought to say to ourselves, okay, here is this sandstone pillar that's shaped like a lion, and here are these spirits that look like mountain lions, like there's a connection here. Duh. That never occurred to us because we were so afraid. And so fear blocks you from thinking about what the situation really is. And so the fear is something that it's something, you should avoid the fear, ha ha ha, right?
Yeah.
But the idea is, the first idea I want to get across is that there are a lot of kinds of spirits, and you got to think about what you're dealing with, and then you'll know how to respond to it. And so if your first reaction is fear, you have to say to yourself, okay, I'm afraid, but let me think this through. What is really going on here? Like last night.
Fight or freeze. It's hard to use. I know I spent most of my life in that, and it is hard to use your mental facilities and so
exactly. And that's a problem. But people should be aware that that's a problem, that they shouldn't just stop at the fear. because that then draws one picture. And the idea is that fear, when you're feeling afraid, that causes you to call. You're calling, your fear calls.
Well,
And
go
so
feed on fear. I thought I
exactly,
was saying they really
exactly,
they need extreme emotions to survive. And so when I've been in extreme states, it's like it's like I'm super afraid or super traumatized. It just calls them in. I wonder if that's why like people who suffer from schizophrenia have so many voices. They're probably calling them in. I do want to say before I forget that so you were told the story of the protection spirits, and it reminded me of a guardian spirit that lives in Hocking Hills above a natural spring. So I went to this natural spring with one of my shamanic friends, and we were gathering water. We made offerings, and I thought, oh my God, it's so gorgeous above this spring. I'm going to crawl up and just play around like a little fairy. And I was filled with dread, but I was able to listen and hear. It wasn't about a spirit that wanted to get me. It was a guardian of the water. It was saying, hey, this is off limits to humans. I could see you're cool. Like you're not a bad person. You're not trying to, but no one's allowed up here.
and that's really an important thing to point out too, that the landscape has animation in it, spirit
I didn't
presence in
know
it,
it. Before
and you
that,
got to
oh
listen.
yeah, I was able to listen. I was surprised. I was like, I came down to my friend. I said, there's a guardian spirit. I didn't even know that up for the water.
Oh, oh, absolutely. That is so true. Water, especially. That is so true. Absolutely. And because this area here in Ohio, it was occupied continuously for thousands of years. So we have the quote unquote mound builders, right? The Adena people, and then the Shawnee that are supposed to be the descendants of the Adena, and then the Delaware, and then so on, part of the Iroquois nation and all of this. I mean, it's been occupied, and they cultivated these spirits and understood it and lived with them, and part of what we need to do, I'm so glad you brought that up, is to sensitize ourselves to that, to understand that there are limits, you know,
Respect to
respect,
understand
exactly,
that, like that was
respect.
like a respect, kind of the same as the old podcast about the serpent mound. I heard very clearly, you need to respect this space. This is not a fun little place to meditate.
That's right, that's right. Respect is so important. Exactly, respect. And had you decided to like camp there or something like that, you would have had to make an offering, or do something to acknowledge that you understand that and that you're keeping your limits, and that the spirit doesn't have to push you, because they can push you,
Mhm.
and they have the elements in their power. Different spirits have different elements that they work in. So it could be the water that would splash up and drown you, even though it's just a foot high, or it could be and like that. They have different elements, or the wind. They have different elements that they can use, and so to be respectful to the spirits of the landscape, that's very important. That's right. That's right. And I mean, because you're already kind of mature in this world, in that world, in the greater reality, you didn't just say, oh, I'm afraid. You tried to figure out, well, what's happening?
It's so pretty up there. Why does it feel so ominous?
Exactly. And you're lucky that you did that, because we had a friend in graduate school, actually, she was the wife of one of the faculty members who went up in the Hucking Hills and did not, I think, exactly what you said. She went to where there was this waterfall, and then she jumped off and died.
Oh, I got
And
chills. Oh my
she
gosh.
did not hear it. She did not respect it.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, oh,
And she went.
yeah.
I mean, that's how it is. That's
I
how it
wonder
is.
how people can develop the listening when they get afraid. So like the
I
fear.
mean, what they need to do is, and that's part of what I want to talk about
Okay.
today.
I don't want to get ahead of myself.
No,
Ourselves.
okay, so as you're saying, as we're saying, so fear, as you say, it energizes the call. It's energy, exactly what you say, and it makes you visible, exactly as you said. And we've talked about that before. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that visualization is something that people aren't aware of. That when they're afraid, they try to imagine what it is that's scaring them. And that imagining then can accidentally call a spirit
Okay.
in that mode. So you imagine the scary monster with the woo, and there it is. And from its perspective, it's saying, I get it. That's who you want me to look like. So I can communicate with you. So I'm gonna take that shape.
Okay.
So they'll take the shape that you're projecting. Just like when we do the trances, for example, the one of the goddesses, actually the next trance that we'll do, the goddess, the Aztec goddess of uh, cleansing.
Oh, the
You know,
purification. I
yeah,
love
we'll
her.
do that one next after the bear. That she does that, and I've seen her do that. She takes a human shape,
Mhm,
but she's not human,
mhm, mhm.
you know. But she
So a
takes
lot
that
of
shape.
spirits are shapeshifters.
No,
Well,
they're
that's
shapeshifters
body.
because they don't have any shape.
Yeah, so they have to, they're just like, oh, and I know, I don't remember the exact quote, but I remember it stuck in my mind. I believe it was Einstein that said something about imagination and visualization being just as powerful as reality. Like there's no difference. So it would make sense that if we visualize what something looks like, then it will then take
It will
care of
look like that.
yeah.
Yeah, and indeed, in ordinary reality, it's like that because when we see, we then project what we think we might be seeing.
Okay.
So it's not extraordinary. That's actually how perception works.
You try to stay
So
neutral. That's what you
yeah,
taught me. Cover that horror and try to get your emotions neutral.
cover. That's it, and let yourself become solid, clear. You know,
Solid, clear, and then in turn, just list, just be that
listen.
witnesser above.
Exactly, a witness. That's it. That's it. That's it. And so visualization has got great power. And if you don't want to meet a particular spirit, if there's some spirit that you find really, really scary and you don't want to meet it, don't visualize it.
Okay, that is a good tip for protection.
Because making an image, a visualization, is the traditional way to call spirits. That is the oldest way. And that's the idolatry, right? That is the idols that you see the anthropologists, archaeologists dig up. I mean, that is how we do it. We take an image and then we visualize through that image, we call the spirit. So you can do it with a physical object that's the image for people who are not good at doing it in their heads. But once you've gotten it in a physical object, you can then think of that physical object and do it. So for example, again, going back to the stone lion spirits, when my mother and my brother wanted to call those spirits in Buffalo, New York, they visualized the shrine, and then they opened a door, and then they were visualizing, and all of a sudden this big black cat screeched and hung on the screen with its claws, hissing at them. It's like, okay.
I would have screamed. My nervous system couldn't take that. And it had
But
to be a black cat.
that's
Those
that's
are
the
similar to
power.
spirit, right? Like that, all myths seem to go back to something. And boy, my black cat has some powers.
Oh, for sure. Cats, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, that's a whole nother one, right? We could do a whole nother one on animals and
Ooh, that
how
would be
they,
cool. Yeah.
that would be fun. But so visualization is a traditional way to call spirit. So if you want to call a spirit, visualize it. But if you don't want to call it, don't visualize it. And that's one mistake people make when they're afraid, is that they then think, oh, well, what could this be? And maybe they, oh, it's a devil. Oh, and then there it is.
Oh, the devil, boy. And so I'm curious too about the subconscious mind. They say we run our programming is only 5 to maybe 8. If genius is 9% of their brain we're actually using, but could the subconscious mind conjure things too?
I mean, I mean, we're, when we talk about the unconscious mind, when we talk about like Freud and Jung and all of those kinds of people who focused on that, um, that's like how do you say it's not some it's if we want to talk about the physical brain, we would talk about the right hemisphere as opposed to the left hemisphere. It's the hemisphere that synthesizes, visualizes, or if we want to talk about the way we talked when we first talked about spirits, it's the narratives,
So
it's
the stories that are
agency,
already running, whether it came from a deep
stories.
dark thing, it has to come up to the actual one that we're witnessing in order to manifest these.
Manifest. But it's true that we are unaware of most of what is going on. It isn't that we don't use the rest of the brain, it's that we're not aware of
Oh,
what
I like that.
what's going on. Consciousness is very thin, and it just shows us, so to speak, the blackboard. What is it? Writes messages on the blackboard, and you see, oh, I'm thirsty. Or you have a thought, oh, check out Joe tomorrow, and you have this thought and it's on that message board, right? We have no idea how that message is created or where that message comes from. And one of the things we'll talk about when we talk about divining, which we'll do in the next talk,
Mhm.
is about how people who can do that can distinguish between your own voice and another voice. You
Oh,
hear a different voice.
that's the easiest thing for me. I can't do a lot of things, but boy, that one's once you
Exactly.
get, yeah, that's just like a trust in the self for me, like trusting, oh yeah, that's my voice. Oh, that's the truth sayer voice.
Exactly. And you have to be able to make that distinction, because otherwise, and I think in general for people, they should realize that sometimes the voices in your head are yours and sometimes they're not.
Right. And I think part of the fear is like, is it a dark spirit voice? But that's more possession. I mean, I know
Well,
there's,
and
we talked about the land guardians and the protectors, but then there's also I'm just wondering if the scariest spirits are usually uh, the people, hurt
oh,
people.
well, and well, exactly. And we'll talk about that. So, uh, becoming invisible and holding yourself still is the thing to do if you don't want to be, quote unquote, possessed by something. You don't radiate, as you say, don't energize it by radiating intense emotion. You let yourself be calm. You just listen. You detach. You're witnessing. No fear, no imaging. Don't try to imagine it. If
Yeah.
you do that, you create it. You give it a foothold. Then it can come out and be external to you in the world. You'll see it and you'll think, oh, this must exist because I see it outside me, because you've been able to give it a shape that it can carry, so it can carry itself outside you in a shape.
What if all this has happened and it's already there and you can't get rid of it? Is that when you break out the salt and stuff like
And
that?
so, and that, right. And so that's about changing your state of consciousness.
Okay.
And that's like eat, drink, talk, mantras, meditation, yoga, right? You do something, depending upon different people or different ways, right? You do something to change your state of your consciousness. And like, for example, and I talked about this when we talked about ghosts, with the famous exorcism case in Germany that my mother worked with. There, the poor girl was on an antipsychotic drug. She could not change her consciousness. And so it went on and on and on. She couldn't stop. But and she couldn't eat. And she finally died of malnutrition, of starvation. If she had been able to,
Was the fact that what you said at the beginning, the customization of working with any dark energy is that just because sea salt works for one thing and the Bible chants work for one thing, the Bible chants were actually triggering that being, if I remember correctly from that story. Like that
that's right.
just blows my mind.
That's right. Well, those are spirits too. And how they appear to you have got to do with where you are in your world. If you're filled with hate, they feed on that. Hate is a energy. It's I want to do something bad, and the spirit says, okay.
Me too. Ooh, don't know about it.
Okay, that's what you want. They're not in that bad, good, negative, positive. They've got different kinds of spirits, have different kinds of aspects that they can present and different things that they can do. And so you have to watch out for that. So change your state of consciousness.
Okay.
And sometimes, like to prevent possession, sometimes wearing metal works. So something not silver or gold, they're independent of that. But like when we do the trances, we always say, don't have any metal because it interferes. But it interferes. So if you want it to interfere, wear metal. So you might wear a big metal buckle on your belt, for example, to protect your hara, or you might wear a necklace on your chest that protects your heart in another situation.
I got a quick questions before I
Yeah.
forget. So so normally they go in the hara. When my mother got possessed at a raw cacao ancestor ceremony, the great 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 grandfather who came through was very dark, very angry. She said, I felt him. He was so scary. Came in through her feet. She said he came in, and I watched her become paralyzed slowly. It crept up until she was until her whole body was paralyzed. Luckily, there was a good shaman there, and we Hopo Ono that spirit away, because who would have known? I don't know if I would have been able to do it because I wasn't able to change consciousness out of fear. But so sometimes they can come in other places.
And that's right. And like I say, every situation is different. These are just generic. And it came through her feet because it was her relative. It
I
was
wondered
blood. It
that.
was
Okay.
flesh. And had she been aware of what was going on, she could have, if she had held herself, like in the Zen posture, so upright and so strong through the back and the chest,
Okay.
it wouldn't have gone into her. It would have gone around her, or it was how she was holding herself. She was holding herself exactly
Yeah.
like that, bent over and clutching. So she created this bowl shape that it then went into it was in her bowl.
Oh my gosh, that's wild. Okay.
Isn't that right? I mean, that's what I would guess.
Yeah, yeah, she was very scared of spiritual things because she knows how powerful she is. So I can imagine she was thinking she was protecting herself by hunching in that bowl shape, but it would make sense that that bowl, right? Bowls hold things and capture
Exactly.
the evil great grandfather. I don't ever want that to happen to me. I'm just going to
Yeah.
stay real straight. But she's also full of a lot of, and if you listen to this, I love you, Mama, but she also has a lot of fear, you know?
Well, there you go. And they feed on that.
Mhm.
Exactly. Like you say, it energizes, it feeds. Exactly, exactly. And bad vibes, like you said, can come from another person who's sucking energy or directing negative energy in your direction. And this again, you need to be invisible, detached, hold yourself still, center yourself, don't react, distance yourself, disengage. So that's like there's a Zen story, that says it, is that so? And there are situations, right, where you just say, okay, you're trying to load this shit on me. It ain't going anywhere.
Remember Wild Woman Fest? Remember
Right?
you taught me that. You said become like air.
Exactly.
Disengage.
Exactly.
And I did. I mean, I'm human. I'm learning. So I would go from the fear to the neutral, to the fear to the neutral. You know, I guess for those listening, it's hard. These are ideals. It's hard to do it perfectly. And me being in the situation of having a really powerful woman wanting to put her crap on me, I was, I used a scarf to cover my head a lot, and then just, yeah, real still.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
didn't engage in conversation.
Yes. Yes. That's right. You just let it pass through you. You do, if you react to it, you feed it.
Mhm.
And that's what they want. They want the energy. They want your energy. So if you say, oh, why do you say these horrible things? They're feeding, right?
Yep.
And so if you just say, oh, is that so? Huh,
I
what can
love
we do?
that. You could be right. My mom taught me, just say, Dawn, well, you could be right.
There you go.
Then you're not saying it. You're just like, okay, this is back to you.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. You're empty. You don't respond. You don't give anything. And so there's another kind of a thing where, for example, and I know again, I talked about this in other talk, but for example, where we used to do trance sessions in this town in New York State, which was by the conjunction of two rivers, and where there had been great battles, and there were communities there, and there were a lot of Binghamton. I'm not pronouncing it right. I can't somehow say it. Binghamton. Bing. Anyway. Yeah. And there wasn't. If you lived in a place like that, there's not. It's not personal, but that doesn't. But it's very negative because these are spirits that are just, bad things happened. If somebody from that culture was there, they could put them to sleep. But nobody's done that. And they're protecting the waterway,
Wow.
and they're angry because of the way in which they were treated, the injustices, and so there's nothing you can do personally about it unless you're an Iroquois Native American, shaman, who can, do a ritual that you might be able to untie some of those knots. But I was, uh, I mean, they came on as wolf spirits and as negative, angry, hostile. And so there again, all of the things we've said about, well, keeping yourself quiet, not engaging, right? But if say you have a house in a place like that, then what you need to do is to put things in your yard, like plant trees, bushes, so that the the spirit passes through rather than sort of around your house rather than through your house. So you want to make a path, and make sure that there's, and then in that case, their element was water. So you want to think about how the water would flow. So you make a path so that if there were water, the water could flow through that path. So you want to make a path so that they can flow around as opposed to being stuck.
So would that be done mostly with, I mean, obviously physically, but also intention, and kind of, would you pray
Yes.
with that too? Like,
Yes.
I'm planting these trees in honor to give this water a pathway, like kind of
Yes.
speak to it as you do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In a ritual way. Absolutely. Absolutely. That would be the best way to do it. Absolutely. With respect, acknowledge them, and then give them the path. This is your path.
Isn't that what every dark or, evil? I wonder sometimes how much evil there really is, or is it just hurt people, hurt spirits want to hurt spirits? I mean, for what you just told me, it's like, they got screwed out of their land and their
Right.
clean
Right.
waters that they cared for thousands of years. So of course they're, hurt spirits, hurt other things.
That's right. I completely agree with you that the only evil spirits there are people who project that idea. It's the people that project that idea.
Oh, that call on the spirits to shape shift it.
Exactly. The call on the spirits to take that shape.
How interesting.
Yes.
How interesting is that? Um,
Because it's a belief system. The spirits aren't about a belief system. They're independent of that, you know. It's like saying a cat is evil because it catches a mouse, you
that's
know.
just the
That's
belief
evil.
we put on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do spirits seem to torment kids? Is it because they can see more, or they
I
can?
mean, I think because, well, torment, I think if we were teaching our kids the right things,
Mhm, mhm,
that it would not be that way. That is, the kids would hear it,
mhm.
recognize it because they're open, and they would recognize it and they would treat it with respect.
And they would just maybe expect it, just like, oh, you
Exactly.
told me that spirits
Exactly.
are
Exactly.
there at night, so cool. Like, and then they wouldn't have the fear, and then they wouldn't be projecting. I mean, they have the same powers as adults, right? To kind of even more so, I think, with their
More
vision.
so because they haven't inhibited them. A lot of people were open when they were kids to spirit energies. They could see it, they could feel it. And then somebody told them, no, that's crazy.
Every time. I know, it drives me nuts. I tell parents to get, what I did with Shay is I made a spray, or my mom made it actually, made a spray that said, "Go away, scaries." Now she did attract in um what seemed to be very unhappy spirits. And I'm wondering if it's karma. It's a mix between what happened at the house that we were at the time, and then also just maybe her karma or her dharma or something, like just these
I mean,
dark.
I think there are probably two things going on there, maybe three things going on there. One, there might have been, uh, like hauntings in the house
There was a haunting in the house, yes.
that she was catching. Two, it might be memories from, because I know your daughter has a spirit connection to a former life, for previous life.
Yeah.
Memories, thoughts, feelings, as you say, the karma from a previous incarnation that she wasn't mature enough to understand what that was about, or nobody could tell her, well, okay, these are memories from another life,
Yeah.
you know? And three, it could be she's picking up the vibes of people in the house.
Yeah. What a trifecta for the, yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. In that case, I didn't know what to do to protect her. I guess just teach. It sounds like whether your kid has one, two, or all three of those, just more informing them, letting them know this
Right,
is as normal as part of
right,
life as.
right. They're the exactly teaching our kids it's okay. It's not scary. It's not. It's like when like yesterday, for example, one of our toilets. I mean, I'm the only one home. I've been the only one home now for a couple of weeks. One of our toilets flushed itself yesterday. I
Oh
mean,
dear.
flush itself. I mean, how does it do that? You know what I mean?
And who
Now,
was
I
that?
mean, yeah, I mean, so it's like, okay, there's energy, some kind of energy, right? But if I'm set up so that the only thing that exists is physical bodies, and there's no physical body, and I'm all alone in the house, I'd be terrified, you know? But if you tell your kids, hey, they're energies, they're loose energies,
Yeah.
you know? It's cool.
And a lot of times they're just saying, hello. Yeah, it's cool. Hello. Like there's a light upstairs. Never flickers unless it's all dark and I'm going to the bathroom in the middle of the night. And then it's like, la la, la la, la la. And I'm like, come on, it's middle of the night. I'm very parental with spirits. I'm like, come on, you stop that. I'm trying to sleep.
Hey, absolutely, right?
Boundaries
It's
with spirit.
boundaries. Exactly, exactly. Now, some people use crystals, and I want to say again, and I've said this before, be careful. Crystals can attract energy, not repel energy. They can attract energy. And they sometimes have agendas of their own. They've sometimes got animate. And so you just really have to be careful. Each one is an individual. They're not generic, you know?
You can't just get, yeah, like what is the one in the witchy world is like there's a dark crystal, there's a couple for that are meant for protection, but I learned the hard way that yeah, they're each like their own person.
I remember you had one, right, that you had gotten in a cave, right? And then it was like, right? I
Was
can't
this
remember.
big, and it's a carnelian, it's for second chakra, energy. And I mean, I don't even remember what was happening. All I remember is you closed your eyes, contacted the truth sayer, the truth voice, and the truth voice was like, hey, do you have a tiny crystal? And I was in the room with it, and I got my text from you, and I looked at it, and I was like, yes. And you were like, it's got this tiny, and what we would think is generic, right? Like a generic, you can go to Pearls of Wisdom, you can go to any shop and buy a tiny carnelian. They're a dime a dozen. But
Yeah,
this one had a power that was radiating through my brain. I could barely function. My energies were too high. And it kept telling you, I want in the ground, I want in the ground, I want in the
yeah,
ground. And so
that's right.
I
That's
buried it.
right. Right. And that ended it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So you got to be really careful because people don't know what they're doing. They think, like you're saying, exactly as you put it, they think, oh, this is casual. Crystals are not casual.
Okay, that is a great thing, Crystal. And I tried to tell people afterwards, I was like, well, because after you said that, I tapped into it and I heard, oh my gosh, there's way too many crystals above the ground. Like if that one wants in the ground, again, in balance of the universe, we've taken all these crystals doing all their work in the ground and we brought them up for
Yeah,
our
yeah, yeah.
pleasure, unconscious pleasure.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And then also, it's sometimes what's going on that people think it's a spirit because they're getting a lot of poltergeisty stuff that, like for example, and it's really about the feng shui of their house. It's about how things are arranged in their house. And for example, my sister, she asked me, there was this chaotic energy in her house, and she, dropped a dish, and her partner, I can't remember, they were dropped, so they broke things, and what was this about? And so then I looked, and they had this big statue that her partner had brought in of a drumming Buddha that was creating energy, was vibrating. It was vibrating. And what it wanted was to be, it wanted to be with plants. It wanted to be
Plans.
it wanted to see the sun, and so she had to change the direction of it and put it by the houseplants. Then it's fine.
I love that. This you can't see it very clearly, but this little lady who's made out of tree bark, she definitely likes to be able to usually see out the window too. So that
Yeah,
makes
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you have to, so sometimes what's going on is that and also when things change, like at the present moment where we're living in a world of great turmoil and change. And if you're feeling that discomfort that makes you think, well, maybe there are negative energies around, it might be you need to move your furniture, rearrange things, let the energies flow through your house better.
because it can get stuck.
That's right. You can get stuck.
Yeah.
That's right.
I wonder, I mean, if anyone's ever been in a hoarder's house or someone who just a clustery house, it does feel funky. And then
It
like
feels,
people who have those simple home, which I'm not one of, I'm like in the middle, but those
yeah,
people who have the real simplistic homes, I've always loved that they have like one vase on the shelf and one candle on the table. Man,
yeah,
those feel clean. That's a
yeah,
clean house.
exactly. I
Yeah.
mean, right, exactly, exactly. And then pollution. Sometimes there's pollution. So like a dead animal, for example,
Oh.
or jewelry or a book or some other object that has picked up bad vibes. And so you might want to feel through your house if you're feeling that kind of energy, and then, either you get rid of it or you smudge it or you do a ritual cleansing of it. And like divining tools often need protecting because they pick up vibes.
Okay.
So like I wrap my I Ching in red cloth. It likes red. I don't let it be exposed. My tarot cards are in a special box in a special place. It's like you have to protect those things to keep them from picking up the vibrations that happen when you use them.
That's why I don't let people, I've never let people touch my cards. I know some people who do readings, they go, now you shuffle them and now you, and even at the salt cave, I've never been like, I'm like, I will be able to, I'll show you the card.
No, I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense because it's really easy for them to be polluted in that way because they're open doors. I mean, that's part of their function, is to be
Right.
open doors.
That's good talk. That's a good thing to know.
Mhm.
Yeah, they open doors. I love that.
Yeah. And then mirrors. Mirrors. You got to watch out for mirrors. Mirrors can act as portals. You had a mirror like that.
Holy, I don't trust any mirror. I've had two mirrors now like that. And that's another thing about, just used mirrors, used furniture, used jewelry. I mean,
Yeah,
it's cool, but not for me. I gotta have brand new. If it has anyone else's energy, I just can't hang.
that's
Unless
right.
it's really
And you
beautiful.
can feel it, right? Sometimes when you open, you can feel it, and if you're someplace and you are tempted by something, feel it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Just
Yeah,
feel like put on the necklace, you can tell. I can
you
tell.
can
I had
tell,
someone
you
try to
can
get, I
tell.
don't work with tarot cards, I do Oracle, but someone gave me tarot cards once before, and I was like, and actually, someone gave me angel cards, which you think would be positive, and I was flipping through them, and I was like, I hate it. Was such a rare. It was Doreen Virtue, who I think went insane, and so now she there's no cards left of hers, and I was like, oh, these are special, and I was like, oh crap, they're dark. I gotta give them away.
Yeah, really, really. And when we talk about divining, we'll have to talk about that,
Okay.
and I'll look forward to your stories because we haven't talked about that really. I mean, we've
Yeah,
talked
that'd
about
be
aspects of it, but not that part of it. So mirrors, best to cover them or turn them to the wall when you're doing certain kind of rituals, because you don't want them to, uh,
yes.
yeah, so that's pretty much what I got. And next time we'll do divining.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah.
Sleep. So when we're sleeping, we're in and out of realms, and
Oh
I
yeah.
hear a lot of questions about protecting yourself in your sleep. I have recently, and I wanted to share this with the audience, discovered that I needed to protect myself by turning off my phone. So I think a lot of us,
Oh, yeah.
I know for me, I'm on my phone all the time. It's part of my work and I like to do it. But then I would just sit my phone, it's charged, but I'd sit it on my nightstand and go to sleep. And one morning, my guide, or one in the middle of the night, my guides woke me up and they're like, you're connected to millions of people when you're just sleeping beside your cellular phone on. So I started turning it off or on airplane mode. But there's also, I feel like our facilities are kind of, even though we're neutral, I would think when we're sleeping. I think you probably know what I'm trying to say. Just trying to say sleep seems to be a different time to interact.
Yeah, yeah. There are different kinds of. Actually, I had that as a possible topic to talk about. But I think we talked about a little bit before. But there are so different states of sleep. So for example, when people have the kind of dreams that where you're paralyzed, right? In general, when you're sleeping, when you go into deep sleep, your body is paralyzed. And sometimes you'll have a dream that is so vivid in that time that you think you're awake
Oh, okay. So it's not
and you're
necessarily your
paralyzed.
spirits, it's more just
It,
like,
it's it's your, and that's a time when certain kinds of spirits can visit you. So the aliens
aliens. Yeah.
visit in that is when they visit. They don't tend to visit people in other stages of sleep. That tends to be whereas other spirits visit when you're in that time where you're almost awake, where it's between waking and sleeping. That's a very good time for a lot of spirits that seems for me anyway, that's the most common time when they come. you know I'll have visions in that time and dreams in that time, so you wake up from the spirit dream, because it's in that time where you're not deeply asleep but you're not awake. It's in between time.
In
And
between.
that's where you get the lucid dreaming, tends to be in that time, where you're able to make decisions. It's not you, it's not your ego you, it's that other you,
Mhm.
that the truth you, and where you make those decisions.
In sleep, is there a good I
Say that
go
again.
on arcade. Is there a good way to protect if people are if beings are coming around in the sleep? Is it just the same? Try to be neutral. That in because the in between time is when like my fan turns or I feel hands on my feet. I felt that throughout my life. Someone just comes and pushes my feet into the bed, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's a little scary, but doesn't mean I need to protect from them, right? Like we don't necessarily have to protect
Yeah,
from.
see, and that's part of what I hope people get out of this is it's scary because we think everything has to be physically caused. And this is not physically caused. It's a spirit and you don't know what it's about. But think of yourself as being visited. It's a touch. It's
Mhm.
friendly.
Yeah, it's just a nice little toilet flush or or a
Yeah,
fan twirl or a it
exactly.
doesn't have to
Exactly.
be like, I need a protection from that.
Yeah, right, right. It's very, and now some people want to protect themselves in their sleep. You can use the prayer wheel, the Native American prayer wheel,
Okay.
right? Which is like a net, and it catches the, so to speak, quote unquote, negative dreams, the negative spirits.
Yeah. Is that like the dream catcher too?
Yeah, the dream catcher. Yeah, there's a dream catcher for
Oh,
that very purpose. It's blessed, and you can do a ritual blessing when you get it,
okay.
to put it on your altar and light a candle and wake it up,
Okay.
because otherwise it's just an object.
Again, going back to that visualization, intention,
Totally.
those are
Totally.
important.
You wake
Wonderful.
it up. And somebody who's in a Christian world, they can use the cross, especially the cross with the circle behind it. You
Mm.
know, that I don't know what you call it. If I were,
I don't know either, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, can be used for that purpose but again, wake it up with that purpose in mind. You respect it, help me, protect me, filter for me, and then put that in the bedroom with you at
Okay.
night, and then if something happens that is negative, you can think of it, call it.
Think of the object that you blessed and activated.
Totally.
Like, hey,
Use
I need your help.
exactly,
I do that a
exactly.
lot with angels. I don't know why, but I feel like angels can help too. So I call on them. I'm just like, okay, I send something around. It's almost like a support team too. Like, hey,
Yeah,
could you come and support me in this? Like, I'm
yeah,
doing a lot. I don't know if I want to spend all my energies trying to be, or can you support me in being neutral and feeling
yeah,
not alone in this?
yeah, yeah.
So awesome. All right. Well, that's a lot of good information, and we covered so much. So we will um, look into and learn about divination and predictions and psychic and all that fun stuff the next time.
Next time. Okay. All right.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
You too.